Assassin's Creed has spent the last 11 years becoming one of the largest gaming behemoths of all time. Some of the games were amazing, some of the games were terrible, other games were just meh, but all of them have made a big impact on gaming as a whole. All of them strive to be different, and Assassin's Creed over the years has changed significantly to become a completely different entity from the clunky action stealth adventure set in the Crusades we knew all the way back in 2007. But how has it changed? What was the journey? How did we go from a blade hidden in the crowd to a magical spear at the center of a battlefield? In this video, I aim to tell you the evolution of Assassin's Creed, its past, its present, and just maybe, we'll delve into the future of the franchise. The games as I see them have been split into 4 groups. The games within these groups share many similarities in setting, look, design, and even engine. The first group contains Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and Assassin's Creed Revelations. The second group contains Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and Assassin's Creed Rogue. The third group contains Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and the fourth and final group contains Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So without any further ado, let's delve into this volatile franchise and where it all began. Following Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, Ubisoft started work on the next game in the Prince of Persia franchise, entitled Prince of Persia: Assassins. The game would centre around protecting a prince and playing as an assassin. However, this idea was dropped a fair way into development, as Ubisoft didn't want a Prince of Persia game that didn't centre around the prince. Thus, the game became a new intellectual property, and Assassin's Creed was born. With the interesting premise of an evil organisation looking back through genetic memory to discover ancient artifacts scattered through time, gameplay centered around fast-paced parkour and swordplay, and graphics that truly highlighted the power of the then brand new PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, it looked like Ubisoft had a solid game on their hands. Released on the 13th of November 2007, Assassin's Creed followed Altair ibn Lahad through the late 12th century Holy Land. The game's story was an excellently well put together concept, told in a unique fashion and presented in a new way, both mysterious and intriguing. Assassin's Creed managed to hook a fair few players. However, even for 2007, the gameplay was insanely repetitive, and refused to even budge for more diversity in gameplay later in the story, and the sci-fi elements left many players expecting a historically accurate game baffled. Needless to say, Assassin's Creed still had a long way to go to become a franchise that we traditionally think of when we hear Assassin's Creed. Following generally favourable reviews and sales for the first game, Ubisoft set out to make a sequel immediately afterward. Tripling the team from the first game, Ubisoft spent the next 2 years working on Assassin's Creed 2, a game following the life of Ezio Auditore da Firenze, set in Renaissance Italy and furthering the story of the first game's modern-day protagonist, Desmond Miles. The game's previously narrow focus expanded 1,000-fold in this game, with a wealth of open-world content to do and explore, a wide variety of weapons and outfits to choose from, many new ways to interact with non-player characters, both refined stealth and combat systems, a town building system, and dozens of side missions, including Prince of Persia-like parkour puzzles. The game also told the plot in a much more cinematic way this time around, and the plot itself was made much more interesting, with the story picking up right at the start of Ezio's life and taking him all the way through the first 40 years of his life. The game packed the series' best ever protagonist and his revenge story, taking him all across the beautiful setting of Renaissance Italy. This is where Assassin's Creed hit its stride, began building a large player base, and truly became the staple of Assassin's Creed as we know it. The game was widely praised across the board, becoming one of the best games of 2009, and sold enough to transform the franchise into an annual one. A large part of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was comprised of cut content from Assassin's Creed 2, and the game was made entirely within the year of 2010, an impressive feat in and of itself. Continuing with their streak, Ubisoft Montreal developed Brotherhood. Brotherhood was set in Rome and continued the story through the next 7 years of Ezio's life. The game introduced the classic elements of liberating boroughs within a city to Assassin's Creed, and the entire city of Rome is yours to be liberated, renovated, and effectively own. It also features a new Brotherhood system that returns in later games, as you can recruit assassins and train them from recruit to master assassin. More equipment is made available and the graphics was slightly improved. Along with this, combat was evolved to become much more smooth and cinematic than it appears in the first 2 games, and as a result, much more fluid and fun to play with, and the modern day was evolved to have itself a tiny open world. A unique multiplayer system was added to the game, along with that added even more hours to this already large game. The story of the game, while most likely the weakest of the Ezio trilogy, is still amazingly fun, and a great villain was found in Cesare Borgia. Ubisoft have done it again. They managed to release an amazing game to critical acclaim in another short space of time. Assassin's Creed was a promising new franchise, and the industry's eyes were on them to see what would come next, and a strong fan base stood directly behind them. Despite originally having no plans to release a mainstream Assassin's Creed game in 2011, these plans changed as in April 2011, Assassin's Creed Revelations was announced. Like Brotherhood, the game was developed entirely within 1 year. However, unlike Brotherhood, Revelations was not made from cut content from any of the previous games. Set in both 1511 Constantinople, as it furthers the story of Ezio, and the 12th and 13th century Holy Lands, as it wraps up the story of the first game's protagonist, Altair, Revelations managed to link the overarching narrative of Desmond Miles with the story of the series' 2 protagonists. Gameplay-wise, Revelations remained a standard affair. A new hook blade allowed for more entertaining parkour gameplay, and bomb crafting allowed for more diverse approaches to the gameplay, as well as a strange den defense system which involved defending a small part of a city from a siege. However, the main draw of Assassin's Creed Revelations was its story, featuring both the best story coming from Assassin's Creed at the time, and what I believe to be the best story the franchise has ever produced. Not so much in the beginning and middle, but the closing scenes of the game is downright amazing, and brings the stories of both the classic characters of Ezio and Altair, who by this point had become staples of modern gaming, to a satisfying and emotional close, and allowing the story of Desmond to take its rightful next steps to the future of Assassin's Creed. The game was received more poorly than its 2 predecessors. This was mainly down to its lack of gameplay innovation, most likely as a result of its short development period, and due to the fact that this was the 4th game using the same gameplay engine and structure. Despite its excellent story, Revelations had started to show a bit of age in the franchise and represented a small drop in quality for the games. It was lucky then that Ubisoft were evolving the formula with the next game it had planned. Unlike Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations, Assassin's Creed 3 was in development for 3 years as opposed to 1. Assassin's Creed 3 easily heralded the biggest change in the franchise to date, with a whole new engine being developed to evolve Assassin's Creed into the next step of modern gaming. Inspired by Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed 3 was set in the American frontier, complete with hunting mechanics, and for the first time ever in Assassin's Creed, a large forest-based setting. A lot of the game's mechanics were vastly simplified for this game. Freewheeling was simplified to be faster and as easy as pushing down a button, going so far to even slightly discourage the player from rooftop traversal by way of making it slightly clunky and illegal in the game. The combat, while slightly simplified, was also improved 1,000 times over, with the game feeling smooth and fun while also retaining some difficulty in enemy types. The game's environment also became a lot more important, with stealth now depending a lot on tall grasses and hunting being made essential for crafting and money, of which was more important with an evolved economy system. The shadows of naval also started to appear in this game, with the occasional main story mission requiring it, and it being a large part of the side content in the game. On top of all this change, a revamped graphics and physics engine, along with a new weather engine, had Assassin's Creed looking better than it ever had and ready for its first new tentative steps into the next generation of gaming in the years to follow. The game also features Native American Connor and his father Haytham Kenway across the American Revolution, the latter being the more interesting yet also only playable in the first few hours of the game. It's hard to honestly say whether the story for Assassin's Creed 3 was good or bad. From certain angles, it can come across as a thought-provoking and interesting tale, and from other angles, it feels bland and not in the least bit interesting. That's because the game mainly is bland moments punctuated by very interesting ones, and the main protagonist Connor was nowhere near capable of holding the story together between those interesting moments. The game also did the mistake of killing off its modern day protagonist, Desmond Miles, a mistake that not only left the game feeling anticlimactic, but crippled the overarching story of the franchise forever. Not only this, but while the game certainly featured new gameplay features, many old gameplay features had been either left to the wayside, simplified, or even forgotten, and the amount of side content in the game was slim in comparison to previous games. Despite this, the game's new direction of change of pace for the franchise allowed it to face mostly positive reviews, with a small but unnoticed backlash from its fans. To most, Assassin's Creed had lived up to what a yearly game could do, and the new Anvil Next engine allowed for a game that looked refined and evolved. Continuing on with the annual release pattern, Ubisoft then released Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which had been in development for 2 years. Being the first game in the franchise released for the next generation of console hardware, that being the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, the game featured vastly improved graphics that still look beautiful to this day, and a bigger open world than we've ever seen before with Assassin's Creed. Granted, much of that is seawater that only should be traversed in your ship, but it is impressive nonetheless. In the game you play as Pirate Captain Edward Kenway, father and grandfather to Assassin's Creed 3's main protagonists. The game truly makes you feel like a pirate, with the naval side content Assassin's Creed 3 now being expanded to fill the whole open world as you upgrade your brig, the Jackdaw, to take on bigger and better ships and forts in a fun combat system that fails to get repetitive or any less fun. The game is set in the bright Caribbean and includes a wide variety of places to see and explore. The story, centered around pirate assassin Edward, is a tale of loss and redemption, very different to what is seen in many other Assassin's Creed games, which are about building their characters up due to their talents. Assassin's Creed 4 is about tearing the characters down due to their talents. By the end of the game, Edward is a changed man, a good man, but a man with nothing left in the world. It's an interesting and entertaining story, but unfortunately it ends as it could have gotten good, and was left without a proper sequel to tie up loose ends with. The modern day story was a major downgrade from Assassin's Creed 3, where it is effectively an office simulator. That doesn't change the fact that it is the best one we've received since though. Assassin's Creed 4 strays a lot away from what we know as Assassin's Creed, and that's been both a good and a bad thing. It offers something new while also not exactly being what we want from Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed 4 refined a lot of what we saw in Assassin's Creed 3, and also added quite a few new things for itself. AC4 ended up being an excellent game, but it ended up straying a bit too far from home. We all know Assassin's Creed Rogue released 1 year after Black Flag, and on the same day as Assassin's Creed Unity, was a sideshow that wasn't really meant to be taking up all the attention. However, Ubisoft wanted to maximise sales for the previous generation of hardware, that being the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, before moving on to what was effectively bigger and better things. The game probably evolves the game the least out of the entire franchise, considering the actual evolutions were happening at the exact same time. It's just that those evolutions were those that were to stay. Slight changes to the combat systems and naval systems are all that can be seen here, along with a system where enemy assassins can hunt you down using the same tactics you have employed over the course of the previous 6 games. The main draw of Assassin's Creed Rogue, like Revelations before it, was its story. A short story albeit, but a story nonetheless. The story follows assassin turned Templar Shay Cormac as he betrays his former brothers and goes against the Creed to protect the innocent. It's an interesting dive into the philosophy of the Knights Templar, and it's good to finally do something different for once. However, rather than show us the Templar side of things in a conflict similar to those depicted in the previous games, the game decides instead to use this opportunity to make assassins look like complete idiots, and the Templars to look like heroes, rather than using a very one-sided narrative. the game had an interesting link to 3 Assassin's Creed games: Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed 4, and Assassin's Creed Unity. Graphically, Rogue might be a step back. In fact, in many ways, Rogue is a step back for Assassin's Creed, but then it was never meant to be a step anywhere other than to the side, and reviews show that. Rogue is a game that very much shows that it is not significant, a glorified side game, if you will. Like Assassin's Creed 3 before it, Assassin's Creed Unity represents a large change for Assassin's Creed. Being the first game designed purely for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and having been in development since 2010, expectations for this game were high. The game promised overhauled combat, graphics, physics, parkour, and multiplayer systems. Once again, Ubisoft were looking at another giant leap for Assassin's Creed. Unfortunately for Ubisoft, that leap didn't go nearly as well as they expected. On release, the game was embedded with bugs so deep in the code that it would have been near impossible to completely remove. But underneath all that muck, when the character's face wasn't sliding off their body, there was a good game to be found somewhere in there. The game's new combat system was far less flashy and far more realistic and difficult, and the previously one-button parkour system had been replaced with a parkour up and parkour down system, which allowed for greater maneuverability when traversing the open world. The open world of Paris is filled to the brim with life and sets a great tone when interacting with the world. Character customization in this game is much more hands-on than experienced in other games, with the ability to customize the character's outfit piece by piece, all with different stats and abilities and a huge variety of weapons to use. Not only this, but multiplayer that is more reflective of the single-player experience had been added to the game now, with the ability to tackle missions and heists across revolutionary Paris. The story of the game was very dull in all honesty, with not much emotional investment behind it and a hard to follow political plot, and a protagonist that was very inconsistent. In addition to this, modern day gameplay wasn't just minimal as it was with Black Flag and Rogue, it was completely absent. Assassin's Creed didn't suit this new format in the slightest. The critical reception for the game showed, with a lot of reviewers criticising its technical aspects and die-hard fans thinking more about the nitty-gritty details of the game. AC Unity was a complete failure for both the fans and Ubisoft themselves, and many were growing tired with constant Assassin's Creed games, year on year on year. If Assassin's Creed doesn't weather the coming storm and manages to die in the coming years, then it will be said that Assassin's Creed Unity was the beginning of the end. Assassin's Creed ploughed on regardless though, and 1 year later we received Assassin's Creed Syndicate, my personal least favourite entry in the franchise. For once, a different studio was working on a mainline Assassin's Creed game. While all previous AC games were developed by Ubisoft Montreal, for once Ubisoft Quebec were given a shot at Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is the game that is probably the most well known for the whole liberating boroughs thing, with it being a core game mechanic required to advance further in the game in an effort to pad the game a little bit more. It takes heavily influence from popular games at the time, including Grand Theft Auto 5. The game is heavily centered around driving by way of using carriages to traverse the open world. Zip lines were also introduced in the game to allow for faster parkour, and a handful of weapons replaced the vast array to be seen in Unity, and the combat playing out in a ridiculous and sometimes hilarious fashion. The graphics actually dipped in quality after how good they are in Unity. The plot for Assassin's Creed took a slightly comedic turn with this game, with it being much more lighter-hearted than any of the other games, with Jacob Fry being a very comedic character and a lot of spontaneous character introductions to famous characters, and little plot build-up. The modern day, like Unity, was completely absent. Syndicate was much more focused on the city and the setting, and the minimal side content in the game as a feature rather than the characters themselves. Unlike Unity, however, it took hindsight to realise how poor a quality of an Assassin's Creed game Syndicate really was. As a result of the complete mess that was Assassin's Creed Unity and a subpar marketing campaign, AC Syndicate sold very poorly, and as a result Ubisoft decided to take a year off for Assassin's Creed to rest and recuperate, while the fans wore off from franchise fatigue. Like Assassin's Creed 3 and Unity before it, Assassin's Creed Origins was poised to revolutionise the franchise, and change it they did. Unlike Assassin's Creed 3 and Unity, with Origins it actually worked. Starting development all the way back in 2013, Ashraf Ismail and the team that worked on Black Flag worked meticulously to transform Assassin's Creed from an action-adventure game into the framework for a role-playing game. The game removed Eagle Vision and the paired animation system for combat. The Eagle Vision had been replaced with a Control the Eagle to recon your enemies and loot with, and the paired animation system has been replaced with an open-ended Dark Souls-like combat system that relies more on strategy than when you press a series of buttons. Origins also introduced a bit over 100 side quests to the world and a loot system that further enhances these role-playing elements. The story is also much improved, with a more functional modern day where you play as Layla Hassan, with third-person gameplay making a return for the first time since 2012. Set in Ptolemy, Egypt, you play as Bayek of Siwa, one of the best protagonists the franchise has ever produced, in his quest to avenge his son and bring peace to Siwa. The story actually had some emotional investment for once. Both story and gameplay had improved drastically with Assassin's Creed Origins. Players who had given up on the franchise following Unity and Syndicate were returning, existing fans were happy, and new fans were getting hooked on a whole new brand of Assassin's Creed. Origins was an amazing game, and it had breathed new life into the franchise, life that would give the franchise another chance, another opportunity for greatness. Assassin's Creed was back. If Assassin's Creed Origins had RPG elements, Assassin's Creed Odyssey takes that to the next level and transforms Assassin's Creed into what can only be described as a full-blown RPG. Featuring dialogue choices and the ability to select your own character, along with an overhauled skill tree, improved combat systems, and the return of naval combat. However, this could cause some inconsistencies with the lore of the franchise. According to the laws of the Animus, the choices that are presented to you shouldn't be possible. Along with this, Alexios or Cassandra don't appear to have much of a personality, and many Assassin's Creed elements like the Hidden Blade, haystacks, and actual assassins are completely absent from the game, and some things just don't look right about the game. Not that it copies from Origins, because that's never been an issue for Assassin's Creed in the past, but my hopes are not held high that Assassin's Creed Odyssey will be everything I hope it to be. But I guess we will find out on the 5th of October, and no one can say for absolute certain until then. But I have my doubts, and I've addressed all of them in the past, and I'll take a look at whether I was right or wrong when I review Assassin's Creed Odyssey a couple of weeks after the game's released. Take a look at Odyssey though, and compare it to how it all started with Assassin's Creed 1. Needless to say, Assassin's Creed has changed. It has evolved. Let's take a look at the engines as a whole now though, on their merits, what styles of gameplay they present and represent, and which ones work for Assassin's Creed. The Anvil engine is the engine that includes that classic Assassin's Creed style. It's heavily mission-based and centered around multiple cities. It features with the ability to freely traverse between them. Anvil is an outdated engine of course, but it represents a time when Assassin's Creed was a lot simpler. It was just that, Assassin's Creed. Then we moved on to the Anvil Next engine, a completely different breed entirely. While the Anvil engine was heavily centered around the city and the missions, Anvil Next focused a lot on traversal and the environment. Big ships, hunting, the outdoors. Anvil Next was a lot more nature-based than the rest of the engines, with the exception of Anvil Next 2.5. The game's combat was at its most fluid during this time, and there are the most inconsistent games when it comes to quality. Moving on, after that we have Anvil Next 2.0. This is heavily city-based, but in a completely different way to how the first few games are. The games are set entirely within the cities of London and Paris, and the games are about traversing a singular city and exploring it. It's more about those cities as an individual skill than it is about France or England as a whole. The games are very parkour based and graphics based, but the style of gameplay resulted in this engine producing two of the worst games in the franchise. Then moving on, you've got what I like to call Anvil Next 2.5. That's the style of gameplay that you get to see in both Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is definitely centered around a country, with a much further back setting and giving you a whole country to explore. Despite some of their faults, Origins and Odyssey will be the best Assassin's Creed games if you judge them by size alone. But it's when you get down to it and wonder what happened to the stealth action game from 2007 that some of their faults start to show. Assassin's Creed has changed several times. It had to. No one can deny it. Does it always go right? No. Is it always necessary? Yes. Assassin's Creed is approaching a point where it can be considered a classic. However, when we think of Assassin's Creed, do we think of Assassin's Creed 2? Or Black Flag? Or Unity? Or Origins? Really, that's up to you to decide on what Assassin's Creed is, and what it can be. Assassin's Creed is changing. It's an RPG now. Who knows where they'll go with that? Maybe they'll change this formula again soon. Who knows? Assassin's Creed has an uncertain future, and all we can do is witness and wait to find out. Thanks for watching, guys. This script was very difficult to do up, and the editing, as always, was a bit of a pain, but it's honestly worth it when I see the finished product in the end and I can put it out to the world, and I really have worked my arse off on this one. If you could drop a like on this video, comment on it, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe for more videos like this. I deeply appreciate it. This is my second longer video in a row, and yes, they do require more effort, but it's only more rewarding if you guys enjoy them, so let me know in the comments. Speaking of that, let me know what you thought of the video and where you think Assassin's Creed should go from here. Remember, Snapchat, Twitter and Instagram links are all in the video description. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.